Field on Friday of this week. I was worried I was going to have to find an insurance running back host for the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast while we were down doing the ultimate draft experience at Bahamas in the Bahamas. I don't want to bury the lead. There's a lot of stuff we want to talk about, a lot of people we want to give thanks to and flowers to, but Field, come on. We can't bury this.
I'll try my best to make this a fairly short recounting of what happened this past Friday. But we, as part of the weekend, we had a combine, basically, to determine the draft order. It was a variety of activities, one of which included this obstacle course. The conclusion of the obstacle course was a blow-up quarterback dummy that you had the right to kind of run through. You could have just avoided him. You could have done what Mike Clay did, which is just tap that thing. Or you could have pretended like you were 17 and not 37 like I did. And go up and try to drill that freaking thing. So after a great morning in which we ran the Sandy Toes 40 and we were doing, quarterback accuracy contest, I figured let me test my luck with this obstacle course. And let me tell you, I was cruising. People on the beach. I mean, I was already confused for Tyreek Hill once earlier that morning because of my speed, like my elusiveness. Like people were like, oh my God, is this like Deebo Samuel, Barry Sanders? Like, who is this guy? And then all of a sudden we went through this obstacle course. And as we went through the obstacle course, I decided that it was important for me to go and tackle the crap out of this quarterback. And
we have video.
We have video. We're watching right now.
We're watching
video
on YouTube. We have a video of said tackle and the aftermath.
Yeah, so I tried my best to crush that thing, and I knew right away something was really bad. And I have been very fortunate to avoid significant injury for the most part in my life. This has been by far the worst injury that I have endured. But I knew right away something was bad. Daniel, Mike, and I were there. Stephania was coming down shortly.
Yes, because remember, me of the torn plantar fascia could not participate in the
any of the running
events.
Yes, exactly.
And so we had recorded a podcast. I was going upstairs to change and come down, and I was way up at the other end of the property, up in the hotel.
I was frantically texting Stephania after this happened to make sure
this happened. So I take the hit, and I immediately am like, crap, please let me shake this off. But I know something is wrong.
Yeah.
I know this feeling. It's different than like, you stub your toe, you run into something, whatever it might be. I knew something was very, very bad and that I needed some sort of medical attention sooner rather than later. But I also was, candidly, like it's a little bit embarrassing when you're with 50 people all having a blast. It's 11 a.m. It's beautiful Bahamas resort. People are having a great time. So I'm like, let me just go sit down. And, it's weird is my shoulder, the headline is my shoulder was dislocated. It was hanging off my arm there. And I kind of could only grab my wrist to somewhat stabilize my arm.
We all thought it was a wrist injury because of that.
We just need to stop right here for a moment. Like, to everybody who watches injuries on TV and they're like, oh, he's grabbing his wrist in his hand. Like, a classic for a shoulder dislocation is to grab your wrist because you're trying to just keep your arm from moving. Some guys will grab their shoulder, but often they'll just grab their wrist. So again, this is just a lesson to everyone out there. Like, all that Daniel's like, we thought, what's wrong with his wrist?
What's wrong? Did he break his wrist? What happened?
So thankfully, I guess, I don't know, thankfully or not. It was not a wrist injury, but I end up, Stephania, and, I'll do this now because I think it's a really important thing. Like, we talk about this all the time. Like, there is simply nobody in the world who compares to Stephania with her knowledge of sports medicine and the way that she's able to apply it to fantasy football. But she's the hero of the day because I was in a bad spot, an unfamiliar spot for me, not just in terms of avoiding injuries, but we're down in a foreign country, right? And the amazing people at Bahamas and the medical staff were all wonderful. But, when you're in a bad spot, like there's something very, very comforting and familiar. My wife was on a plane down, to be part of the rest of the weekend. She had to work on Thursday, so she couldn't join us till Friday.
This is the second time I've had to call the wife of one of my hosts to say, you're going to need to go to the hospital.
Yes. So it was, and Stephania came down. And you guys all know Stephania's, if you haven't heard, but like she's dealing with plantar fascia. Like her foot is on fire when she takes one step. I'm looking up and I'm like, Daniel, please get Stephania down here. Please get Stephania down here. And meanwhile, like all of a sudden I see her like emerging and I'm like, oh my God. And Stephania's running down the beach. Yes. And I'm like, she can barely walk and she's sprinting.
Like, is that Bo Derek? Oh no, it's Stephania. I had no idea.
Yeah. Stephania, because like for insurance purposes, Stephania and none of us were able to really do anything because it would have really compromised my ability to go to the hospital. But Stephania kind of gave me a lot of the peace of mind that I needed, and she stuck with me for the entire day. We had to go in the ambulance together, and I want Stephania to tell a little bit about that ride. But we ended up probably from the moment it got separated and dislocated until the moment we left was probably 4.5 hours. And Stephania was there for every step of it, which includes, there's the physical part of it. But, like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, all I want right now is for someone to take my shoulder and put it back in the socket.
Back in place.
And there's a ton of paperwork and insurance stuff. And truly, if Stephania wasn't there, I don't know what would have happened, but I would have been in a way worse spot. So I feel like I should be indebted to you anyways, but I am, like, forever indebted to you. And if people ever doubt the sincerity of how wonderful she is as a human and how brilliant she is with her medical stuff, like, I now can say with even more firsthand knowledge that should never cross your mind. And she made me feel so much more at ease. And beyond, like, on top of that, she's been a resource in the aftermath. After we finish this conversation, Stephania is putting me in her car and taking me as I go see a specialist for the next steps here. So my sincere thanks to you.
Well, thank you. It feels making
Stephania
me
is the
blush,
best.
but honestly, I
best.
would do it for any of you, as you know, because I'm adding up.
I'm like,
posts that
Stephania,
I
go
to
back to the
hospital.
freaking. I'm like, go back to the thing. Like, even when my wife got there and she came right from the airport to the hospital, she's like, you can just go. And you're like, no, I'm not.
I'm good.
She's like, I'm not leaving.
I'm going to stay
She's
here
like,
and make sure.
Not
you're
a
good.
chance. She's
Yeah.
like, I
But,
want to see
I
this
wanted
all the
to
way
see the
through.
X-rays, so I got to see the pictures, and
Yep.
I was just wanted to make sure everything. It's hard if anybody's ever been in a foreign country and been injured or ill. It's scary. It's scarier than when it happens in your backyard. So there's a lot to that peace of mind component. But honestly, the part what people don't appreciate. First of all, I did say to Field when he was still sitting there with his shoulder out, next time a player goes down with a dislocated shoulder,
That's
he's
right.
like, I will never question their toughness
my
ever
God.
again.
Those guys are my
You see guys go off and they go in the back and they reduce their shoulder, put it back in, they put a harness on, they come back out and play. Think about that, and so Field has an appreciation. Anyone who questions player toughness, when you go through something like this, you appreciate it. But the ambulance ride, I kept saying was something out of like a Jason Bourne movie, because we are going down streets, and if you don't know, like, you can drive on the driving. Sometimes you're on the wrong side of the road there, and then we were deliberately going wrong way in traffic, and cars are coming head first towards us. Field's luckily in the back on a gurney.
Can't see any of those
Can't
things.
see.
Yeah.
But also the roads in Bahamas, not necessarily on par with the ones here.
As smooth.
Potholes, boom, boom. Field saying words I've never heard come out of his mouth every time we hit a pothole. And I'm thinking, just good thing he can't see, because we are splitting traffic, going up on curbs. We're next to cement trucks are moving over, and I'm thinking, how are we going to fit? But we got there. And everybody was lovely in terms of how they cared for Field. So that is the best part.
For what it's, do you want to?
No, I really can't thank the staff at Bahamas, both before and after.
Yeah.
Doctors, Stephania.
I just
the
don't want to
nurses.
forget this part. Field on the drugs after they put the
Oh my
shoulder
gosh, we have
back.
so many great,
Apparently,
so many great. Videos.
maybe the apex of my life. We're saying that.
What was funny was now I was with Chapin because she had arrived at the hospital. They take Field back. They're going to administer some drugs because they have to get your shoulder muscles to relax. They have to get you to relax, because now to put it back in is going to be uncomfortable after it's been out for a while.
Sure. So
When they let us back in, Field is laughing. He is high as a kite.
Having a good time.
Having a good time.
Those were something.
Thanking everyone. And I will tell you this, America, that the doctor told us after. He comes up to Chapin, he goes, some people say a lot of crazy things when they're under the effects of these drugs. He goes, all this one said was, I love my wife. I love
That's
my
so
wife.
good.
Over
Good
and
for you,
over
Field
again.
Yates.
I love my wife.
She was,
so,
and she was great as well. And the reality is, I'm probably going to be close to a 0 as a parent for a little stretch here, which that's been, I'll deal with the other stuff. Work's been great. That's probably the part that in the 15 hours since we've been home has been the hardest reality, and it will be for a little while here. But I know Chapin is going to, carry the load like she usually does anyways for us.